point of the whole point of a navigator is simply just to have it so that you're not I mean your your senses you're driving faster than your senses in a lot of cases like that. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it.
With skill, dexterity, and
Well,
nerves of steel.
Well, I think it's reaction time though, Richard. You know what I mean? You've got to have sort of the snap reaction times that I think that most people don't have. It's like being a jet fighter pilot. It's almost like being able to react so
Instinct.
fast. Faster than the human mind is really supposed to.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of the Petty and Ill-Informed podcast, where we discover all kinds of topics in our petty and ill-informed fashion. Joining me, finally, co-hosts Kevin and Tom. How are you guys?
I'm better now. I'm doing better again. I mean, lately, like I sent to you the message, that just said this year has been the shittest year of all time.
Yep.
And so I fell down 2 weeks ago and broke my ribs, and so that genuinely sucks because they can't do anything for you except tell you to keep deep breathing and make it hurt so that you don't like get a lung problem or anything else. So my wife's been sick. I've been trying to, look after her, and it's just been a lot of times looking at the ceiling. But Tom's not well either. He's had a cough.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a.
Okay, is that my internet?
No,
Kevin, can you hear me?
I can't hear him.
No, it's Tom. Tom's just cut out. Well, he might be sick, but there is no cure for what's wrong with him.
Oh. Let me see if I can move slightly closer to the Wi-Fi antenna without waking up the whole bloody house this time. Can you hear me any better now, guys?
Yeah, you don't want to get in trouble with your wife again.
Did she come on? Did she come on last time and hit her with her handbag?
Pretty close.
She did. Yeah, the words were expressed. And he's banned from doing it when they're on holiday now because apparently his wife was mortified that he got in trouble with the Premier Inn lady.
She wasn't massively impressed with that for sure.
The Premier Inn lady, was saying that you were too loud?
Yeah, she yelled at him on the show like 2 months ago, I think.
Okay, but listen.
Did you miss
I don't
that
know.
one?
I don't. I mean, maybe I've really distracted. So the Premier lady was saying, "Okay, where were you in the lobby or something?"
But I was somewhere even less helpful than that. This was back in August. I was just in a corridor down the far end, away from all the rooms. At least I thought I was. I thought I was as away from people as I could be. But no, what happened was, I just got this almighty bollocking for being a loud git at midnight. And she came on and asked me to move on, and it was all recorded live. It went out on the show. And then I disappeared off into a disabled toilet to try and finish up the show, which just sounded even dodgier. So, I did myself no favours. Because I think I said I'm just going to go into the toilet and finish up, which sounds... honestly, it all went out live. Richard was laughing.
Okay.
And who wasn't? Blimey.
All right.
I did laugh
very typically me.
Well, I think that's just
quite
brilliant because normally what you would think of was, not the type of thing that like at midnight but imagine listening, imagine being in your room and hearing somebody getting a rollicking out in the thing and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to go into the disabled toilets and finish up. I mean, you would have
Kevin.
What? You know what I'm thinking. You know what
No.
I've been in a pub and headed into the disabled toilets, but I wasn't finishing up a podcast. But It's like the world's end.
Yeah. Did you? Oh, well, yes, it really was. It was pitifully poor, but highly entertaining.
Oh, no, but that's brilliant. I mean, that's the thing that's funny. But there's nothing as funny as there's nothing as funny as life. The stories that people tell sometimes you can't make up. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there's
You
not
just can't-
stranger than
can't
fiction.
make up, because you wouldn't imagine that somebody would be that mad. But then somebody must have called down to the front office and said, "That's it. I'm not doing it." Okay, well, that's the thing. Okay, so you were in your room. And then, so you had probably your whole family in there in like 2 separate beds, and then
yeah, that's right. And I'd snuck out with my laptop and gone down the far end of the corridor and done the whole show from there.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it was one I was leading. I can't quite remember what the subject was.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
And totally embarrassed myself.
Well, I'm just wondering. I mean, if you would have gone to was there any kind of lobby area you could have done it in, or not? No. I mean, I don't know why I'm so concerned about this, but I'm just saying. It's.
Well, that would have been more sensible to talk to them about
maybe.
it and ask somewhere, but.
Yeah.
No, that would have been both more sensible and more polite, but there was a chance they could have said no, and I wouldn't have been able to do the show at all.
Yes.
So
I just say you need to use their business area because you're a professional podcaster, and then sue them for not being able to do your business. Anyway, no problem. Richard, have you been caught in the hallway lately?
No, I wouldn't do that. I'd just be like, I'm on holiday, so I'm not going to be on the show next week.
Well, you're never on holiday. You haven't had a holiday for a long time yet. You need to take some time off.
I don't need to take a holiday. I live right next to the Lake District. I can just go down to Keswick whenever I want a holiday.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean. I know, but I was saying that the other day. How come it is whenever, like I live next to some pretty cool places, like Seattle and all these places, and you never go anywhere because you live down the road from it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, let's go to the Space Needle and let's do this and let's do that and let's do that, and it's like, okay, yeah, because of the fact that it's half an hour down the road, you don't do it. You know what I mean? And it's only whenever people come and visit you from England or Northern Ireland or whatever that you do go to do it. It's a funny thing. I mean, it's just like, I suppose that like if you lived in like right next to Disneyland, you probably wouldn't even go to it. You know what I mean?
You'd probably work there.
Well, yeah. I mean, or whatever.
But I go down to Keswick every year when the Ospreys come back.
Right. Or Tom, like Tom lives down in, like I would imagine that if I, even though I know, Tom, you don't live in London or the London greater area or whatever, but you could take a train there. I'm sure. Don't you live like sort of close to Dover or something like that? Couldn't you take a train into London?
Yeah, I do. That's not too far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that. Well, I'd be. You think you'd be up there every weekend? Well, you've got kids now, so you wouldn't. But that's the thing. You would never run out of stuff to do.
What, going up there?
Up to London, yeah, and do something.
No, we go up for we go up. I said it again. God damn it! Right, I promised myself that I'm going to say absolutely minimal R's and ums. That's my ration used up for the night. We go up to London to do things like shows, theatre productions, meals out, nice stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what I'm saying is from that standpoint, there's no place in the United Kingdom that has the amount of theater and everything. I mean, where else would you do it? I mean, Birmingham is supposed to be the second city. I don't know. Manchester probably really is the greater Manchester area. But I mean, it's not like they have, theater shows or anything like that. I mean, if you want to see, theater, you go to London. That's it. It seems like all the musicals and stuff are in London and no other place. Not Edinburgh. Not, maybe Dublin sometimes, but that's pretty rare, I think. but they definitely wouldn't do it in Northern Ireland, and they usually don't do it in Scotland. And if they do it in Scotland, it's in, I can't think of a place. But anyway, but I suppose that's the thing. You don't have that big of a venues there to do that kind of stuff, or then the amount of venues that you would need. I don't know. I've been looking for, I've been trying to plan out next summer because Sam wants to go over there, and live for a few 3-4 months or something and see how she likes it and see if that's what she wants to end up over there or not. This is a big decision. I said I'm not making any choices about this or not, but but then I said, well, if we're going to go, I want to see some bands, I want to see Madness or something because of the fact that they don't come over here, and and so I was trying to look it up, and there are some freaking awesome concerts that it seems like it's just like like Soft Cell and ABC and all these different places at the same place. I mean, you'd never get that here. You know what I mean? Like to have them all at a festival is pretty awesome. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see, but then again,
festival?
It's some kind of some type of a music festival in England or whatever. But again, those festivals don't go really north of Manchester or whatever, maybe Newcastle or something on the other side, but very rarely even into Glasgow. Well, I think Glasgow would be the closest place to you, Richard, from that standpoint. But
yeah, Edinburgh or Glasgow.
Yeah. But see, old Tom spoiled for choice down there.
Yeah,
Well,
right
you
there.
can have,
London.
we really like it. When we last went to a show, we found a vegan Indian restaurant right opposite it, and we're like, "Yep, we're coming up here in February for our anniversary." Yeah,
I knew you were going to throw him over the edge. Did you hear that? Yeah.
Well, it would work.
I don't need your vegan crap. It's abhorrent. It's against science and against God. We evolved as omnivores. We didn't evolve as vegan. We evolved as omnivores.
Yeah,
we have canines for a reason.
But I would imagine. I mean, to be honest, in Tom's defense, I mean, right. So there would be times I would imagine, right, where you would sort of. Do you think that the diet probably was either vegan or meat? You know what I mean? It seems to me like for the majority of the time they were omnivores, but they were usually, I would imagine, eating all vegetables in the summertime or springtime or whatever, and then meat in the wintertime or you know what I mean? It's just like there would be the difference between the hunting seasons and all that. I mean, I would imagine that, we don't know exactly how it was all done. We imagine that women were hunter, the women's that, but we seems like, and this was one of the things that I've always said is we project back our ideas of what the sexes did based on our gender stereotypes. You know what I mean? We imagine that the women didn't hunt, but there's no reason to think that they couldn't have. You know what I mean? Or whatever, because of the fact that there's no spear tip or stone or whatever that you pick up and say, oh, this is a female flint kit. This is a male flint kit or whatever. This is a male axe head or whatever. So it's just silly. You just think to yourself, oh, well, that's what they would have done, because that's what we would have done. You know what I mean? But there is no proof that says men didn't actually, or they decided that they did the task the way that we sort of in this society change it. Especially whenever you realize in a lot of cases that a lot of these hunter-gatherer societies were matriarchal and not necessarily patriarchal. But that idea of the patriarchate and the sort of masculinity being in charge of everybody is sort of a 10,000-year-old idea, ever since we had quote unquote civilization. But anyway, that's because you had to start fighting each other, I guess. I don't know. I'm digressing.
Yes. Yeah, you
Do we
are.
actually have a topic we're meant to be talking about this?
No, we don't, because no one else showed up for last week's show. It was just me. So
Well, is now the time?
Yeah, come and think of something, Tom.
Well, you already talked about Stalingrad, right?
Oh God, yeah,
Did you? But you did do that.
Yeah,
we talked about that.
Oh, okay.
He did a really good job of it, to be fair to him.
Right.
I did thanks, Richard. I did a fairly good job. A couple of massive schoolboy errors, totally forgetting to insert one particularly crucial map into the slideshow. Was a fail of note.
Oh, so you actually were doing like battlefield tactics and all?
Yes, on quite a large scale, but yes, sort of where they where the German position had overextended and the Russians had greater reserves than the Germans thought they did, and managed to get put themselves in a position to the north and to the southwest of Stalingrad, and managed to pull in a sweeping full encirclement.
Yeah.
So they had far more. That's one of the biggest reasons for the outcome of the Russian victory was the underestimation of the strength of Russian reserves by Hitler, Halder, and everyone else at the top of the German army. And that's enough turning back the clock to something I've already bored Richard and Gabby to death with.
Yeah. Okay. That's no problem. I mean, you know, it's just all I do is just try to like throw out ideas and just kind of pick off it and see if there's anything that anybody wants to come up with or whatever. Hey, there was a Sasquatch summit thing in Ocean Shores or whatever this last weekend. I don't know. Boy, it didn't look like there was that many people at it though. You know what I mean? I'm kind of wondering. I don't know if anybody was here and saw anything from it, but I can imagine. You know, they fill up that whole thing in there. They must have seats for 300 people in there, but it just didn't look like anybody was really sort of there this time. I don't know. But then, Richard, I did see this thing, and I don't know if I've talked to you about it, Richard, or not.
What?
The Alaska cruise next year. On Memorial Day week, not Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend. So first weekend in September, you can take a 7-day cruise, 7-day trip on the to Alaska with people who are Bigfooters. Doesn't that sound like an awesome idea, Richard?
What big names can we expect to meet on this cruise?
Well, okay, so you got David Paulides. Who is funny because David Paulides.
Well, that's weird because David Paulides has always said he's not associated.
Yes, I that was exactly.
He goes out of his way to say that he's not a member of the Bigfoot community.
See, you are exactly thinking in my way of thinking. That was the very first thing I said. Was he always supposedly says, oh, I'm not part of this. I'm not part of that. Oh, these Bigfoot people, they think like that. Next thing you know, he's speaking at some conference well, you know how it is, brother. If you're getting a 7-day cruise for free, fuck it. You know what I mean? I'll be part of the community.
There's no supposedly about it, Kevin. Back when me and Phil were feuding on him, with him, years ago, back when this was Unexplained Universe, that he was ultra clear on the fact that he had nothing to do with the Bigfoot community, nothing to do with the UFO community, nothing to do with the paranormal community. He was just a guy, you know, exploiting the deaths of hundreds of people for personal gain. But the fact that he was promoting these books in the Bigfoot community, in the UFO community, and the paranormal community, that was just pure coincidence.
Right.
He had accidentally promoted it. You know, he's the fucking, what's his face, that dude from Ancient Aliens. He's not saying it's Bigfoot, but
it's Bigfoot. Yeah,
but it's
Giorgio Tsoukalos.
Yeah,
but Giorgio Tsoukalos actually seems to be somebody who I would rather I would like.
Yeah, I'd like to hang out with him. I'd like to have a beer with him.
David Paulides, on the other hand, I mean, all I'm going to, I was supposed to meet him one time because we were going to talk about one of the missing people that happened on the backside of Aspen, and I was, going to show him something, and somebody had seen some pictures in the in Sam's photograph she'd taken, and she shared it with somebody, and they shared it with David Paulides, and he was all in. He was going to come up and see this place where she'd seen this anomaly in this picture. I won't go into the whole thing, Richard. I know you don't believe in Bigfoot and all that, but anyway, she took a picture up there that had something in it, and next thing you know, all these people wanted to go up, but he never did show up. But what I'll say about David Paulides is, it's like these people seem to just love. I don't know. Do you think that they think that they're exploiting people? Do they know they're doing it?
What, David Paulides? Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's riding there. He's flat out exploiting them. He is.
Well, I mean,
and he twists and perverts it by saying, "Oh, it's a memorial to them." Yeah, if it's a memorial to them, do the profits of the book, do they go to you, or do they go to the victims' families, or do they go to a big pot to hire people to search for bodies and stuff? No, the profits go to you. All right. He flat out exploits them. He flat out attempts to connect his books to UFO, paranormal, Bigfoot stuff. He just, and to say otherwise, it's just frankly insulting. And you were like, I know you don't believe in Bigfoot. I wanted to believe in Bigfoot, but people like David Paulides, Todd Standing, and Kelly Shaw, and Matthew Johnson have made it impossible for me to believe in Bigfoot.
Yeah, what the way that and I don't think they care. The thing that I think is funny about that is that I agree. I agree with you that from a standpoint of doing it, those folks. I will say this: Matthew Johnson has spent more time out of anybody I know combined looking for Bigfoot in the woods. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say. I know it's hard for you to accept the fact that I'm saying that, but it's the truth. And so the thing that I will say about it is his conclusions are his own, but and how he wants to do it. But it's amazing to me that all these people have then gone so into these other conspiracy theories that it actually hurts them, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you've got to deal with a lot of, not every conspiracy is real. You know what I mean? That's the part of it. I get what you're trying to say about, Bigfoot or UFOs or whatever. I mean, you've seen at this point in time, there's a glimmer of saying that UFOs are possibly real, in the fact that they don't know what they are. It doesn't mean that aliens exist. It doesn't mean that they're from outer space. It just means that we at this point in time cannot identify what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not UFO anymore. It's a UPA.
Yeah. But from that standpoint, it's that argument of how do you know it's not us from the future? You know what I mean? And some kind of a, temporal thing. If for example, dimensionally, if quantum mechanics is real, again, that means that there's 10 dimensions. I mean, that's the only way you can make the equations work. So there are 10 dimensions if quantum mechanics and quantum theory works. They've actually had to come up with the 10 dimensions. I don't even think they know what the 10 dimensions are, but the idea of that coming through to that means that, from a standpoint of that, from a standpoint of shamanism, where they're always talking about walking between two worlds and this world and the other world and bleeding across into other world. I mean, that's actually very, very quantum mechanical to think that, that we could be sharing space with an extra dimensional being. at this point. And we could be surrounded by beings and we don't know it. You know what I mean? Whether that's what people use as an excuse for ghosts or whatever, or what, that's fine. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that Bigfoots come in and phase out or anything like that. I'm just saying that, you know, from a standpoint of theory, you can theorize that. The problem is that then at that point in time, then the people are saying, no, I've seen that happen, and this is what that is. So, what does that say? It
says long live Tim Fasano.
Oh yeah,
I miss him.
Yeah,
he was one of my favorite Bigfoot researchers.
Yeah, but I think, but you see, but this is what I'm saying is that people have gotten the idea. I mean, people have listened to people like Michio Kaku and places like people like that, and so he says, you know, for example, in one of the books that he wrote, is that, you know, of course there could be this really developed thing, society or you know, civilization, not human necessarily, but it doesn't matter if it was or it isn't. But they could come into our existence or shift into our existence, and that maybe the dimensional shift is the only way that they could survive. So you've got people who theorize about that. So the next thing you do is, of course, not really understanding what you're talking about, write a book on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's what we've got.
Yeah.
From that standpoint. But you're not actually having physicists or people who are, quantum mechanical folks actually speaking about it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's the problem. You know, people with high school educations and things like that. I'm not saying they're not smart, but I don't think that necessarily they should be writing book. I mean, you know, if you want to talk about that kind of stuff, interview somebody that knows about it. You know what I'm saying? Go talk to somebody that would say, you know, I'm a professor, I've got a PhD in physics, and this is how it would work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't be just like, okay, this is how it works, or whatever. That's my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I sound like an elitist for saying that, but I just think that we would be taken a lot more seriously if somebody actually talked to Michio Kaku about this kind of a stuff. Just to say, because you know, from that standpoint, he's a scientist. As a scientist, you can't say, you know, unless it's a law, a scientific law, which there's not very many of. You know what I mean?
Absolute laws? No, there's very, very few laws.
Yeah, then a scientist would have to say one thing, which would be like that. It's a possibility. No, it's not a very big possibility. You know, it's you know. So that's the thing about it is people say, well, how come people don't spend all this time and the government's not looking for Bigfoot and all these different things like that? Because the probability of it being real is so low that there's lower hanging fruit. Why would you want to bite off something so hard? You know, you're better off, you know, proving that there's a skink or some kind of a thing living in the woods, something that, you know, there's a higher probability of, you know, it's somewhere else and now it lives here or whatever. You didn't think it was here or was extinct in this area or whatever. Like what do you call those things? Those Tasmanian tigers. What do you call them? The lycopene or something? Thylacines. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Truth of the matter is there probably are some left, you know, and you know that's your. But you can prove that one, they did exist, and you know what they look like, and so therefore, you can see anomalies of these things, and you can sort of say, okay, well, that's not a dog because it doesn't run like a dog. I mean, it's got a totally different footstep pattern and all that. I mean, I know you know more about this than I do, but I'm just throwing it out there.
What about the thylacine? Yeah, I know a load about that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, from that standpoint, you look at that and you say, okay, that's it. I mean, whenever, you know, this is the thing that, I mean, even when we were talking about Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster or whatever, we still take examples of things that we know used to exist,
Yeah.
and that's the basis of for what we think it could be. You know what I mean? Even though there was no, um, Gigantopithecus or whatever in America. I mean, that's still
Right.
what our basis of understanding of what it could be. You know what I
Bigfoot
mean?
is.
Yeah. That's that's the thing. And people say, okay, well, that's what it would be. I mean, but you know that the different sea monsters or whatever that are there. You know, the plesiosaur is really, the Loch Ness monster, or the one that's up around the, like the other end of the Orkney Islands or whatever. I can't remember what that's called. But it's a long necked, sort of thing. But what I'm saying, that's what I mean. People would just look at that and they say, okay, well, it could have been that did exist at one point in time. Now that's what it is, or whatever. So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Sorry, guys, my internet was massively playing up, but it's sorted now, and I loaded up a different device, one that clearly has a different avatar saved for me. So bye-bye, Manta Ray. Hello, my ugly mug. Sorry, everybody, especially Gabby.
Okay. So what do you think, Richard? How are you feeling, Tom? Do you think that you got anything else that you want to talk about?
Well, okay, I'm sorry, I've totally stolen your thunder. We were in Scotland about 2 minutes ago. Remind me, what were you talking about to do with Scotland?
I was just talking about, sort of mythical creatures and things like that, as far as, like the idea that, the Loch Ness monster is like a plesiosaur, or Bigfoot is, Gigantopithecus or whatever. Or there's something in one of the rivers, the river areas in Africa that's supposed to be like a big not a brontosaurus, was never a real thing, Brachiosaurus or something like that. But right. So I mean, this idea that there's like the sort of this relic place, the land of the lost or whatever, the Lost Valley or something like that, where these things could still be alive. And from that standpoint, I guess there's parts of the jungles in Africa where that's just like nobody's been, like the little, which is just, it's hard for us to imagine that, that from that standpoint, because you imagine, especially whenever I was growing up, I live in Ireland, you think, okay, there's somebody stood on every square inch of this island at one point in time, but to think that there's possibly places, within 100 miles of here, maybe even less than that nobody's ever walked on because it's just too hard to get into or difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true, so I don't know.
Well, as far as I know, they're still discovering new sort of regular animals all the time. There's, I'm sure I've heard Attenborough reel off some statistic about how many new species are recorded every year. And sure, I read in a Bill Bryson book that by some estimates, we've discovered such a small fraction of all the different animal species and plant species that are indeed out there.
Right.
Yes, I remember it now. In Bill Bryson's rather wonderful book, A Short History of Nearly Everything. Yeah, there it is. I'm looking at it over on the shelf now. It definitely says that there's, some pit scientists estimate it's in the single figures, the percentage of animals that exist that we have even discovered.
Right. Well, we always get that sort of idea that there's some large, amount of insects. I mean, usually the type of things that's usually some kind of an insect or some kind of a small mammalian thing or whatever. But we do find, some ape species and stuff like that we haven't seen before. I mean, there are that.
I firmly believe the orang pendek exists.
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, I was listening. There was like the guy who was the editor for, I think, Nature magazine or something like that. I was like, having a discussion with him. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact. It was a big magazine, but he basically said, yeah, if I said I talked to him about different things, and whenever they find the little hobbit man, the Homo floresiensis, and he said, I was talking about Bigfoot, and he said, well, if there is something like that, this a larger human being, it'll come out of it'll come out of the woods in or the jungle in Asia, Southeast Asia. You know what I mean? Sort of that area is where he thinks that would be. He would not be surprised at all that something would come out of the woods there, you know. And it seems to be consistent with like folklore and all these other, it's just like the Homo floresiensis really is a continuation of the stories that they used to talk about on the same island, the Ibu Gogo. And the Ibu Gogo were small little people that came out of the forest and like basically could talk and everything and steal children and run away with them. This is something that was in common lore that they spoke about 100 years ago. So to me it seems like, okay, unless they have sort of this 15,000 year memory of something that's just been passed down for 15,000 years or whatever, this is something that they've seen more closely than that. You know what I mean? These are always the types of things that I always, think about, whenever you take the idea of the sort of wild man of the woods, when you're talking about those things, and you're looking at the fact that, for example, in parts of Britain and that they claim that these creatures used to live in, and whenever they're talking about stories of, even Arthurian legends, they talk about, wild men living in the crags around in the night, the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and stuff like that, that he goes and kills these sort of Bigfoot type creatures and everything like that, and that's where Bigfoot used to live in, or not Bigfoot, but Neanderthals used to live. You wonder how they started to come up with that idea. And was that because they found bones in a cave, and then that's where they came up with it, or did they really see something that was like a genetic forethought? I mean, this is one of those things where you say that some people have, up to 5% of their genetic makeup is Neanderthal, but then at that point in time, how does that work? You know what I mean? From that standpoint, how does that work? So obviously they bred at some point in time. And that's the thing I've said for a long time. Maybe, so they say Neanderthals have gone extinct. Well, have they gone extinct? If people are 5% Neanderthal, are they extinct or are they just bred out? You know what I'm saying? This could be the idea of, are Bigfoot extinct, or did they just breed into the community to bring into the native community? I don't know the answer to that, or whatever. But if you take the idea, I was looking at something the other day, Richard, that was like a Viking cruise that basically went from Alaska all the way around the top of Alaska, all the way through the Northwest Passage, and then it lets you off on the East Coast. And so I was like, okay. And since Vikings were here, I think, a lot of times the stories of what you said, when natives tell stories on the East Coast, they always talk about the redhead giants. Well, how come if you look at it from that standpoint, Vikings have red hair. They'd be giant in comparison to, the average sort of Native American. They would be hairier than the average Native American. Remember, Native Americans can't grow beards. They can't grow a lot of facial hair and things like that. So you've got these people coming off a boat, covered in hair, probably covered in bear skins and everything like that. They've got beards, they've got chest hair, they've got hairy arms and legs and stuff like that. Why couldn't that be what the essence of what they're thinking about whenever they're telling stories is about these red-headed giants? I mean, it seems to me that's a logical conclusion that that they've become something else, but they were something else. Yeah. So that's the. I was gonna, at one point in time, whenever I was really into Bigfoot and I wasn't sort of disheartened by the whole fucking thing, I was like really into I really wanted to, to start a book, about, the sort of Scandinavian Bigfoot, you know what I mean? Because it seems like from that standpoint, a lot of the stories are at one point in time, these things move a lot. And there's the Solutrean people of France that supposedly had gotten to America, or theorized that they'd come to America, and there's deposits of that in the Chesapeake area of Virginia and stuff like that, that there was maybe some evidence of that, and they basically had come across different ice flows, and they ate those sort of, the name of those birds that they're extinct now, that were like penguins or something. Is it the giant
Great Auk?
Yeah, that was it. And apparently that, from that standpoint, they said, okay, they would be able to do, to do that kind of stuff. So, I mean, or at least you could theorize that they could do it, and you could, so, this is the thing of where the obvious solution is there from a folklore standpoint or a folkloric standpoint, and we don't want to take it. You know what I mean? At that point in time, we want it to be something else. I don't know. Like I said, I've always said I saw something. I don't know what it was. I mean, it's not like I had a conversation with it, but it was something that was very, very fast moving in the woods. That's all I could say. That was covered in hair. It wasn't a bear, because a bear can't run like that. That's if it. Not like on two legs. So, but yeah, I've been around bears and stuff.
How long ago was this?
This would have been about, well, the first time, Tom, I had any kind of I didn't have a sighting at the time, but I was 17 and I was up in Salton, which is coincidentally Salton Index area is where they filmed the outdoor parts of Harry and the Hendersons, if you've ever seen that movie.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where I was. I used to work for this guy, and he basically had trailer full for all the paintball guns and stuff, because I would help him with his paintball stuff. I was working for that. And so we would take it up there on a Friday, and then I would sleep up there with a buddy of mine on a Saturday night in the middle of this freaking nowhere, the Salton Basin. And then we would bring it back on Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday you could play paintball, and something came out of the woods that was big and heavy, and one night, and it scared the living piss out of us, because we were inside this this bus. And of course, it was lit up like a Christmas tree on the inside. So it was like an old abandoned school bus that somebody had turned into like this place that we could sleep at night, and it had like a little stove in it and everything like that. Well, you know how that goes. I mean, whenever you're in light and you're trying to look outside, you can't see shit. You know what I mean? But I'm sure everything could have seen us for hundreds of yards if it was clear enough. But something big and huge came out around the thing and walked on 2 feet around the vehicle. And I remember saying to my buddy, and he still remembers it too. I mean, this was just like that. We're like, what the fuck? It's like basically like, what could this thing be? And And you know, so basically we were waiting for the thing to come in. We both had shotguns, and so like at that point in time, I was just waiting for something to come through the door and we were going to blast it. But they just sort of rocked around the thing and sort of stopped and then walked back into the woods. And that was the last. So that was one thing that happened. I don't know if that was a Bigfoot. I don't know if it was a bear. I don't know what that could have been, a bear on 2 feet, to be honest with you, because of the fact that it didn't ever run or anything like that. And then another time, yeah,
that would have scared the crap out of me.
Oh no, I almost shit myself. I mean, I mean, you know, I'm not saying I've ever been. I'm not, you know, like I'm totally brave about it, because you know, the second time that I had that happen, and this was about 3 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know, whenever we started doing this, but I was with my wife, and we were up in the national forest, and we had gone way off you know, the beaten path, and we were just in heavy brush. And we got I mean, it's kind of a weird thing around here because of the fact that you've got sort of this high ground area, and the way that the rain comes off the mountains around here, it creates these sort of like drainage ditches and stuff that come down around these different things. So you've got, a lot of times you've got like this high mound, almost like a salient, and then you've got these lower areas around it. Well, Sam and I were standing on this you know, high bit of ground, and literally something ran past her. I mean, it wasn't, this was going to be like 20 yards away, but it was running down this ditch to the left of her. And so I saw it, and then I turned to the right. It was just an automatic thing. I turned to the right, and there was two things running down the other side, because I was looking out onto this open area. So it was basically, I was in shadow looking out to the light. So I saw two shadow beings, or, you know, something in the shadow, dark beings or whatever, not shadow beings. I don't want to sound like that, running on the right. And I freaked out, because I said to Sam, I said, they're trying to get behind us. They're trying to get behind us. You know, because I was just like going through that whole thing. And one of the things that I found out, that a lot of times that men especially freak out, because they're like, you know, in my situation, I didn't have a gun. I didn't have a way to protect my wife. I didn't have a way to do anything. And I'm just, you know, at that point in time, I'm thinking, even if there was 3 men in the woods running around me, I'd be freaked out. You know what I mean? I would go in a little bit into deliverance mode. But you know, but anyway, so she took a blurry picture of the thing that ran past on the on her left, and it basically, from what it looks like, you know, some people have said, oh well, that's, you know, it could be this, could be that, could be this, but I mean, it's basically something dark moving down this like sort of ravine area. You know what I mean? We went past and measured it. The ravine was, you know, like this sort of like ravine, almost like a little ravine. I don't know if that, you know, how to say that, but you know, it's you know, it was 5 feet deep on that standpoint. So if I stood on the end of it, you could just see my head. Well, this thing, you could definitely see shoulders and the top part of a body, you know. So it was at least, you know, I would imagine, my estimation would be 7.5 feet tall. You know, ooh, that would be it. But there's nothing scientific about it. I mean, I don't have any proof of that other than the story and that picture. You know what I mean? I've showed it to people. You know, they want it for their, you know, collection or whatever. My point of the matter is that, you know, again, a lot of people give evidence over to these other folks, and they use it for purposes I don't think that they should be using it for. You know what I mean? And that's part of the issue is, when's the last time anybody's actually came out with a theory that's not 12 years old or something, you know? That's
Well,
worth a shit.
And carry a big stick. Good work, Gabby. Succinct.
Well, I mean, you know, that's what I'm saying. But I mean, clearly, again, this is a thing where, you know, Sam was calm about it. And she looked at it from the standpoint of like, it's not going to hurt us. You know, she never thought it was ever going to hurt us from that standpoint. It didn't get aggressive with us. It never threw anything really at us. You know, it being from that standpoint, I was just thinking of it, you know, from a standpoint of just pure, you know, defensiveness. That again, if you were in a war situation and somebody was trying to use a pincer movement to get behind you, you know, you'd be very sort of worried about it. But these things just seem to want to get past us, like almost like I said, we like walked up on it, you know, and so therefore we surprised whatever it was, maybe, and it wanted to get past. But that's in that same area, I've had, you know, there's lots of, you know, sort of structures, and I found like, you know, things that don't make sense, like you know, where you've got, you know, two trailheads that come together, and there seems to be you know, a blind that's made not by a, you know, like a human. You know, if you're going out there hunting or whatever like that, you're usually bringing out some sort of, you know, camouflage netting or something like that. But I found man-made hides out in the middle of nowhere that shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? And you have to assume, you know, is this a hunter? Is this somebody else doing it? Is whatever, you don't know. But it's just weird where it is. You know what I mean? But again, that's just one of those things where, again, you find these things and you don't know what it is. I mean, you have to assume that that's a man-made thing. But then again, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is it that different from us? I mean, if you listen to native stories, they'll just say, "Oh, there's just a tribe of natives that just didn't want to be around the white men." You know what I mean? So they just went and lived up in the woods. They just didn't want to be around white men. And if you think about it from that standpoint, a lot of the gifting stuff makes sense like that, because again, I mean, if you were going to be in a quarantine, I mean, we all know this from the pandemic now, if you're going to be in a quarantine situation, you go out, put something in the pathway, and you replace it with whatever it is, and then you sort of, this is the idea behind this gifting thing. But the whole idea behind the gifting stump or whatever makes sense only if, you know, they think, for example, they understand about getting sick from people or whatever. Because I mean, that's the thing, nobody ever thinks of the history of it, and the fact that, you know, Native American folks, because they hadn't been around other Europeans for forever, you know, they would get all kinds of stuff and die. You know what I mean? Malaria or this or that or whatever. And you know, the idea of sort of European diseases just ripping through Native American populations in you know, in North and South America, we don't think of it. So, you know, it is interesting to think, would you, if you could avoid, you know, colonists, especially in this part of the woods, you know, in this part of the woods or this part of the world where you're talking about basically 100 years ago, there was, well, even 50 years ago, there was lots of places that nobody'd ever been. So is it plausible that somebody could have, you know, hid out in the woods or whatever, been the last Indian or whatever around here?
Just
I mean,
out by himself.
Huh?
Just chilling out by himself.
Well, I mean, look at the is it Ishi? I think that was his name, was Ishi. He was like the last of the, you know, he came out of the woods in California in like 1930. You know, he had hid out from folks for a long time, even though the town was right there next to it. You know, like he was building fires and all kinds of stuff, and everything like that. He came out with this baffling system that he could like basically burn a fire inside a cave, and the way that it would disperse the smoke, nobody knew it was there. And you know, so I mean, that's what I'm saying is you know, from that standpoint, if you could live out there for 10 years and nobody knew you were there, you could do it for longer than that. Especially, I would imagine around here, because there's just no. I mean, you know, like I said, there's just nobody around here. I like literally, there's a road 7 miles for us, and I get out into the woods, and then there's no road, nothing for 100 miles east of here. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying that's a large section of land. You know, that basically, yeah, that basically goes from the Washington border halfway up British Columbia, where nobody goes. That's all I'm saying. You know, from that side, it doesn't mean there's anything there, but it doesn't mean everything's not there. But it's not like, I'm not like talking about these people who say they saw it in their park. You know, oh yeah, I got a park next to my house.
Or behind a Home Depot.
Yeah, it was living in the fountain at the park.
I think that'll wrap us up for this week. What do you guys want to talk about next week?
I don't know. Maybe somebody else. I just blathered on the whole time. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
You're all right.
You were in the zone.
Yeah, man.
I can shut you up if I have to, but you know, you're in the zone, so don't worry about it.
Better than me saying, yeah, we found the perfect strategy to avoid that. Let Kev take over and I shut the fuck up. Brutal.
No, I don't say it like that, man. I don't want you to think that. I just know you were struggling a wee bit, and so I thought, okay, I'll just keep
keep on keeping
my
on.
idea.
Yeah, you be you, Kev. You be you, mate.
So I'm okay talking about anything, you know.
Okay, Tom, is there anything you want to talk about?
Oh, having done Stalingrad recently, nothing springs to mind massively as I'll see if I mean I've did sci-fi, I loved that. Did Stalingrad, I love that. Oh, hang on, sorry, this is digression. I have remembered what I was talking about in the bloody hotel corridor. It was when I did how we narrowly avoided World War III during the Cuban Missile Crisis. That's that anyway. Yeah, because I couldn't remember that earlier in the night. But as for next week, nothing springs to mind hugely. That we could do something on the Qatari World Cup, well, the World Cup that's being held in Qatar. And the controversies surrounding it.
Oh, I Tom, that would just turn out to be a moan fest on my hand, because like I literally, I'm so, I didn't like the idea of having it there in the first place, and I really don't like the idea of having it there now.
Well, I'm sold. We can. I think we should do that next week. It would be topical enough. It'd be heading towards the final. I think. I'm not sure. I forget how long the World Cup is. Is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's like 3 weeks or something. It
will be right in the heart of it.
Yeah.
The group stage will be wrapped up, and we'll be heading into the knockout rounds. Let's do it. Let's do the World Cup and controversies surrounding it. What do you say, Richard?
All right.
Unless you want to talk about, Richard, how Janine fell down the steps, and the weirdest fall I've ever seen on a show ever. Go back. Okay, so she's literally Janine is the
baddie.
Yeah, well, she's the baddie, but she's going out with the guy that's a bit of a geezer, Danny Dyer's character, and she's going up a set of steps, and she trips forward onto the steps, and then stands up, and then looks like she's being yanked down the stairs by an invisible rope. And the weirdest fall I've ever seen. I don't know what happens after that, mate, because I know
if it wasn't for Roxy and Ronnie's death, I'd say it was one of the most unconvincing performances I've ever seen on these two. But unfortunately, after Ronnie and Roxy's death, anything goes.
What happened? I missed that. So they both died at once, did they? What happened?
Roxy jumped into a pool and had a heart attack. That was fine. It was Ronnie's death more than anything else because she dived in to rescue her sister. She wasn't wearing her wedding veil when she jumped into the pool, but for some reason she ended up choking on a wedding veil and drowned. And the scene they showed of it happening, I was like, oh God, this is so cringe. And then there was that bit with Jay and Lola in the pub where she announced to everyone she's got a tumor. And the whole time I'm like, I know that you're trying to be sensitive, but this is so cringe. This is so cringe. I'm going to die.
Oh, I mean, I don't know where exactly I am. I haven't watched it in a while. I just got to that episode where she was at the hospital with Mick, and they said there's a 15% chance that the baby. And I was thinking, isn't that normal anyway? What's the chances in the first? Like if somebody said there's a 15% chance, and I don't know. I mean, if you're pregnant and you're in the first, 12 weeks of a pregnancy, I mean, there's a pretty good chance that you're not going to complete, you know what I mean? The pregnancy. I mean, people have miscarriages and things like that. But somebody said, okay, you got a 15% chance. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. But I mean, what's the regular chances of that? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know what happens past that. I mean, other than Janine's in the hospital and
no, the baby's okay. And that they, her and Mick are fine. And,
well, I thought for sure this was going to be it. That the baby.
Oh no! It's gonna come out. It's all gonna come out. How she tried to kill Linda, how she's stole Nancy's money. All of it is gonna come out, and that's gonna precipitate with Danny Dyer leaving the show. It's gotta be the Christmas storyline.
Well, yeah, but I thought for sure, mate, that what was going to happen was that she was going to lose it, and then he was going to realize that. From that standpoint, that
was a lucky break, mate. Best get off on the trotters on me custard and take the lemon down the squeezing.
Exactly. He's happy that he in a way he's like I just see him as being sort of trapped in the fact that he still loves Linda. He's not really all that sort of excited about Janine. And anyway.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to end up with... It's like Kat and Phil. Kat's going to end up with Alfie. Phil's going to end up with Sharon. Why are we doing this? But we've got so many irons in the fire. Suki and a dick husband and Eve. And I've never shipped anyone as much as I shipped Suki and Eve. Like those two. They better be a couple by the end of this year, or I'm going to send some strongly worded letters to the BBC Broadcasting.
Yeah, I mean, but what's up with the husband? Because he was so malevolent when he was in jail, and then he comes out, and then next thing you know, it's like he's sort of, is he still a dick, or is he kind of trying to be just, come
he's
back?
Still a dick,
establish himself in the family or whatever. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, let's look at it this way: if you were in the big house for 20 years and you came back. Your kids are all grown and everything like that. It seems like how would you establish yourself in that family again? Especially when it sounds like nobody ever visited him in prison.
Yeah, it sounds like everybody bloody hates him.
Yeah.
He's weaseled his way back in. And, they're going to have that. There's an iron in the fire. Christmas is coming up. We know Christmas is a good time of year for EastEnders. We have hour-long episodes with dramatic twists and turns. We're really going to see, but they've got so much going on right now. What storylines are going to be resolved around Christmas?
I don't know, but who's going to get married? There's got to be a marriage at Christmas.
We got to be a marriage.
We got to have that. Maybe they'll have that guy marry Lola, and then she'll die of cancer or something.
Yeah, well, does yeah. I mean, they've said that it's inoperable, so I assume she's dying. So.
Yeah, but this guy's selling the arches so that he can move to America.
Yeah. But,
I felt like writing him a letter saying, "Yeah, don't bother, man.
Don't bother. It's not a long-term investment."
Well, first of all, I honestly don't think you can get better care here than you could in Britain anyway. Maybe you could get it faster, but if the way that she's getting chemotherapy faster than you could get it in America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because by the time I've been in and out of the hospital in London faster than I've been seen in America because of the fact that they're trying to figure out what your insurance is. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not going to get into it. But anyway, one of those days we ought to do on why Americans have the myth that they have the best healthcare in the world.
I don't know, but it's a common thing in England, isn't it? Because Max was going to take Abby there as well to fix her brain in America.
Yeah, well, this is the thing.
We could talk about EastEnders all night.
I know we can. I mean, I'm sorry. I probably should have stopped. I'm going to stop now.
We should do a show on Thursday night after the last episode of the week and just wrap up the week.
Yeah, exactly.
We should do a running commentary on the week in EastEnders.
Oh, I would love that. I
would actually like to do
that. I am all in on that because literally I love the EastEnders, mate. I mean, it's just funny that I've seen another man that wants to talk about it. It makes me feel like I'm not so bad. Whenever I was a kid,
I used to be ashamed of it, but now I'm like, no, I'm owning it. I like EastEnders, damn it, and I don't care who knows.
Well, when I was a kid, like I said, when I was a kid, my granny used to watch me all the time because, we had the shop in the village and everything, and my mom was always working, and my grand.
Hello. Hello.
Kevin.
Kevin's gone.
Is he gone? Is he gonna?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, we're not doing anything but watching. Anybody calls on the telephone, hang up on them. I'm not talking to anybody.
Yeah.
So that was the way that was. So when there used to be one from Scotland called the High Road or something like that. They don't have that anymore, but or Crossroads. They didn't have that one anymore either. I don't know, mate. There's a lot. I mean, they need to come out with some new ones. I mean, I guess there's that one Holby City or something. Not Holby City. That's gone now too.
No, it's still on. Cush is on.
It? What's the one with what was the one with like the wives and girl, the Liverpool one or something? Wasn't
yeah, I know what you're talking about. There was another hospital one that's not on anymore.
Yeah,
but Holby City's still on. Cush is on that now. From the actor quit EastEnders and went to work on that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's apparently because that's happened a lot. So that's apparently the way it goes. You start at EastEnders, you go up to Holby City, and then that's it. I don't know where you go after that. Casualty, maybe.
Yeah, you go down. You go downhill from there.
That's it. That's the end of your career. Casualty is the high point of your career.
All right.
So that will wrap us up for this week. We will return next week, despite the hopes of many. It's good night from me, and it's good night from them. Good night.
Night, everybody.
Ta-ra!